Hello, good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM Unity Women's College, Mancheri. Today we are going to discuss the fourth part of the short story Amnesty. Now, this is in fact the last part of the entire video lecture series based on this short story. We had discussed the entire short story, paragraph by paragraph, in the first three video lectures. So, here we start with the question answers at the back of your text. So, moving on to the first part of exercise. In which magazine was the short story Amnesty first published? The answer is The New Yorker in the year 1991. Question number 2. Who is the narrator of the short story Amnesty? The narrator here is a young South African woman. What is the meaning of the term amnesty? A pardon granted by the government for those who have committed political crimes. For how many years was he sentenced to in the trial? So the answer here is 6 years. What name was given by the trade unionist to his daughter? The name was Inkululeko, which meant freedom. Why are the black people kept down according to the protagonist? It is because of their ignorance. Now, if you are asked to write in a sentence, please remember to write it in a sentence itself. If the question comes like that, you are supposed to write it in full sentence. So coming to the next part, answer in a sentence or two. What was the profession of the narrator's life partner? He was working in town with a construction company. Question number 2. Why was he one of the men who went to talk to the bosses? He was a member of the trade union and was very good in English too. They went for a negotiation with these bosses. Question number 3. Why couldn't the narrator go often to the court to follow the trial of her potential husband? At the time of his trial, the narrator had just completed her 8th standard and was working as a teacher in the farm. A lack of money prevented her from visiting her fiancé. Question number 4. Why, according to the narrator, didn't her brothers, who had gone away to work in town, send home any money? The narrator believed that they would be having girlfriends and therefore would have been in need of money. Question number 5. How did the man respond in the court when his baby daughter was brought there for the first time? He was very happy, and his comrades hugged him and collected money and gave it as a present to the baby. He named his daughter as Inkululeko, which meant freedom. Question number 6. Why was the narrator alongside with her potential husband's parents not allowed to enter the boat to meet the man? She was not allowed to enter the boat because it did not have a prior permit from the police to go and meet the prisoner in the island. Question number 7. What was the content of the such a good letter sent by the protagonist from the prison? The protagonist wrote about a bright future where the blacks will have all their rights and can have all basic facilities including education, property, and her home. Question number 8. What, according to the protagonist, is the difference between working in the movement and the union? Working in the movement or trade unions is very different from a regular job. You cannot know how long you will be away and there will not be a regular payment. Question number 9. Why was the narrator's father against the meeting of the comrades in their place? The narrator's father was worried if the Boer, the landowner, might come to know about the political meetings held at their homes. If he knows this, they would be asked to leave the place, which might affect their livelihood and survival. Question number 10. What was the protagonist's reply when he was informed of the second child coming? The man was happy and he said this child would be the future of the land and will bring the hope in future for all the battles they have fought. Question number 11. Explain, I am waiting to come back home. The narrator dreams of a world where she can get back to a home of her own with every right and the necessary freedom. It can also imply the return of her husband when finally he succeeds in his mission of getting the rights of the black people. So, moving on to the next segment, paragraph questions. Question number 1, the treatment of racism in Amnesty. So, I'm just giving you the bullet points, which means you will have to expand all these points to make it into a paragraph answer. So, the entire theme of the short story revolves around racial segregation or racism. So, this actually talks about the challenges against apartheid. It speaks about the status of the common people, the village people, people who are in the farm, just like the narrator of the story. It also talks about the condition of women who are doubly oppressed. It discusses how women are affected both emotionally and physically because of these racial segregation and the issues connected with it. Because there is no land, wages are not properly given, and the blacks were not getting educated. So, considering all these aspects, their standard of living was comparatively very less. So, the entire short story talks about the problems related with racism. But at the same time, the short story, in another perspective, is not completely negative, because if you look at the last part of the story, we can see there is some kind of a hope which is remaining, which means the story ends in an optimistic way, which guarantees us the hope that one day black people will win their freedom. So, moving on to the next question, describe the circumstances that led to the protagonist's imprisonment. So, you can narrate the entire series of events. So, it is all about the nameless protagonist. He leaves the farm in the hope of getting a job. He gets a job in a construction company in town. From there, he joins the trade union and he becomes a leader in that. So, this is a slight transformation which happens to this man, and he starts challenging white supremacy, and he has this questioning nature, and the narrator says that he was good in English, so he conducted a number of rallies and protests, and finally, as a result of this, he was taken to the court, and as per the trial, he was imprisoned for a period of 6 years. Moving on to the next question, narrate the journey to the island by the narrator and the protagonist's family after 2 years of his imprisonment. So, it has been already suggested that they were leading a very tough life because of financial crisis, but ultimately they save a lot of money, and finally they are getting ready to travel and to meet this person who is in a jail in the island. So it's with a lot of difficulties that they finally reach the place. They travel by train and they sleep on the floor, and finally they have to go through a ferry. So they carry the sweets, biscuits, and a warm coat as a gift to the person, and when people were taken to the ferry, they stood like cattle, as if they were waiting for the gate to get opened. So this is a textual line, and this line is very symbolic because it really speaks about the condition of black people. And finally, they realize that they cannot go because they don't have a permit, because they actually wanted a prior permit to travel to the island. So in totality, it was a futile attempt. Moving on to question number 4, the concept of socialism proposed by Gordimer in the story. So what is socialism? You can explain that. Socialism is a political and economic system where state owns production and distribution. So So, in one way or the other way, there is what we call as equality or an equal treatment given to all people. So, definitely, this relates with the rights of the black people here because apartheid comes in between. There is racial segregation, a lot of difficulties faced by the African people, the challenges involved, and how they continuously fight to gain their freedom for a better future. So, you can incorporate the story here, which is about the nameless protagonist and how he gets transformed into a political leader and the fight that he carries out throughout the story. Moving on to the next question. Question number 5. Comment on the climax of Amnesty. So, as mentioned before, though the entire story is about apartheid and racial segregation, the story finally ends on a note of optimism. If we look at the protagonist, we see the protagonist has gone with his comrades to take part in political activities. So he is into the work of the union. So definitely on one side, if you look at him as a family man, his daughter is not recognizing him and he is not able to give quality time for his daughter. So his family suffers on one side, but at the other side, as a result of this, his political activity might bring in a better future for the entire black community. So, moving on to the essay questions. The first question is a struggle of the black South Africans to challenge apartheid. And question number 2, Amnesty as a story of a young woman whose ambitions are thwarted by social inequalities. So, if you go through all the paragraph questions and the one or two sentence answers, you will get a clear cut essay based on this, because I'm not repeating the points because it would be the very same points which we had already discussed in the paragraph questions. So the first question here, the struggle of the black South Africans, can definitely include what apartheid is, an introduction to this racial segregation, and how this narrator, the black woman, is also getting involved into this kind of a problem with her family, with her fiance, with the lack of money. Remember the landowner who is again a white man. So in every walk of life they are suffering. So you can justify this by narrating the story. The second question, Amnesty as a story of a young woman whose ambitions are thwarted by social inequality. So inequality here again, remember women are doubly oppressed here. On one side, on a basic level itself, a woman is oppressed, but here when these Africans are completely ignored, it is a double oppression that is coming for the women folk here. And moreover, when her husband leaves to get involved in political activities, she herself is suffering on one side with her family and her children. So with this, we come to the end of this. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you very much. Thank you.